would be that piece of advice that you give to people who have that perspective that all cops are bad when we all know that's not the case? Everyone's different. Everyone treats every situation different.
That's tough because I'm on both sides of it. I'm an African American male, and I'm a cop.
Look, the biggest podcast where you can learn them lessons. Line for line where you can learn from different sections. Made it out the mud, come tell your story, blessings. Never know who listening, never know who stressing. Devon gave you a voice, come speak your honest truth. Line for line, go bar for bar, it's up to you. Wanna talk sports, gov, and politics? Wanna talk about where you from and your accomplishments? The Line for Line is really where you need to be. A platform that's really made for folks like you and me. You can find it all no matter what you seek. Whether you calling or you listening, tune in every week.
All right. Just like that, we're back in another episode of Line for Line. Very special guest in the building. I'll let him introduce himself to the world.
I'm Daryl from Kenosha. Go Trimper.
I'm about to stop this interview short right now. But yeah, just go ahead. Tell us a little bit about you, sir. Where you come from, what it was like for you coming up.
Originally, I'm from Chicago. I was born there in about, I want to say, 2003.
So you're a Bears fan, not to cut you off. My dude.
Of course. I see you got the Bears gloves in the corner up there.
Yes, sirski.
But yeah, I was in 2003. My mom got me and my brothers out of Chicago just because she had a relationship at the time with someone who was from Kenosha, and he said it was just a better spot, so that we can, get out of that environment, because we all know how Chicago is, or can be. So yeah, so we moved to Kenosha, and ever since it's just been, I'm thankful that she got us out of there, because honestly, I don't know where I would be today if we would have stayed. But yeah, born in Chicago.
Big facts.
Been in Wisconsin ever since. Bear fan, Bull fan, kind of a Bucks fan.
Come on, man, they lame.
Now that the Bulls on the up and up, but yeah, man.
That was actually how I met you, through Terrence back in the day.
Yeah.
We was in elementary, and then I remember seeing you like the next week after I met you at the little flag football, because I played for Wilson, and I forgot, where'd you go?
I went to I went to Lincoln.
Yeah, and I remember you had just got done playing, and I was like, "Hey, what up, my boy? My boy, yeah." So, what sports did you play growing up?
Well, I started. The first sport I ever played was softball.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was before I picked up basketball. Before I picked up football, it was softball, and that was kind of my thing for a little bit. But then I figured out that I was kind of quick. So I was like, I want to do something more I can use my speed.
Yeah.
So then I kind of got into basketball. And then that was kind of my thing, because obviously I'm short. It was okay. It wasn't really. But once I picked up a football, I figured out that was my niche.
Yeah.
I went to Chicago Bears camp, and I met Brian Urlacher, Devin Hester, Alex Brown at the time.
Number 96, that
dude.
Yep.
Yeah, Alex Brown at the time. And he pulled me aside, because I was just like a straight ahead runner. That's all I did. He was like, I would just like run, either I run to the sideline or I would like run at people and not really make any moves. But he pulled me to the side and was like, we're going to teach you how to cut, because you just, straight lines. It's like, we're going to teach you how to cut. So Alex Brown himself pulled me to the side and like set up some cones, and I did a bunch of drills, and ever since that day, it changed the way I played the game. Yeah,
what was going through your mind as a kid who's a Bears fan already, being able to be pulled aside by Alex Brown, the man himself, and taught how to perfect your game?
Man, it was a dream come true, dude. I was like, I cannot believe this dude who's as big as he is like singling me out and teaching me, a different way to play the game. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Just being in front of all those guys was just awesome.
What type of talk did you and Devin Hester have?
I didn't really talk to him that much. It was just like oh my God, that's Devin Hester. Hey.
Gotcha.
Kind of, you get, at that age, I think I was, I don't know, maybe 12. I don't know. Or 13 or something like that time. So I was just like, you're just nervous. You're like, oh my God, it's a famous person. I don't want to say the wrong thing, But it was one of those things just like, hey, Devin.
Yeah.
So, but
was Matt Forte on the team at the time?
No, he wasn't there yet.
Okay.
I think that was really the only the three that I remember was Brian Urlacher, Alex Brown, Devin Hester.
That's what's up. Did you get to get an autograph or anything like that?
I think I got Alex Brown's autograph.
He
I don't know
actually
what I don't know what I did with it though.
What?
Yeah, it was that. It's going on almost 18 years since I was there. So
Yeah.
but yeah, man, it's just ever since then I played the game so different. And then I thank Terrence for getting me into youth sports because once he got me in there, we didn't do CYC. I don't know why we didn't do it. Maybe because the competition in Racine was a little bit better at RYS Sports.
Okay.
So he put me in that, and ever since then I just love the game. Dude. Still to this day,
Yeah.
I love the game. Like I see all the college players and NFL players, and I'm like, man, I reminisce all the time.
Yeah, facts.
You know, and I played up to from high school up to college.
I was just about to ask, were you lucky enough to take your professionalism to the college stage?
Yeah, so I played a year at UW Oshkosh, and like looking back on it in high school, you know, I took it seriously, but I didn't really tap into my game that much until I got to college. And by that time, it's like I should have been doing this when I was in high school. You know, I went to the liftings in high school, but you know, sometimes I would miss.
Oh no.
You know, or I would just be like, I don't want to go today. You know, but when I got to college, it's like, man, I love this. Like this is awesome. Like being around all these athletes from different places and working out and stuff. And Coach Brown was just by far one of the best strength and conditioning coaches. That was probably some of the best shape I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. Just that experience, just getting treated like basically kings at a D3 school. I can only imagine what D1 is like. But yeah, we was getting treated like kings, you know. But I got caught up in the football life of being a student athlete, of you know the Jersey Chasers and stuff like that. I got caught up in that and just kind of got lazy because I was so tired from working out. You got to go to class, then you got to go to practice, and then after practice, you know, you try to watch some film, then you got to try to study. You know, it's kind of like it's a full-time job. You know, and it's kind of like, man, we should get paid for doing this. But I mean, now they do. But yeah, it was a struggle. So I had to make a choice. I had to choose: do I want to get? So let me backtrack. So my first year playing, I didn't get recruited at all by Oshkosh.
Dang.
I got recruited by a couple other schools, a couple other D3 schools, but Oshkosh wasn't on that list. But my friends were going to Oshkosh, so I was like, I need to do something to get there. So what I did was I reached out to the head coach, Coach Cerrone, and I said, hey, I know you guys aren't recruiting me, but I'm interested in playing football. The program I play running back, and no, he was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry, but I already got enough running backs. And I'm like, look, I'll play DB. You know, I'll play defense.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't mind playing defense. And he was like, no, it looks like you're a true running back. I can't take you out of your element. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So then I was like, whatever, I'm gonna send him my tape. So I sent him my highlight tape, and he hit me back. I want to say maybe a couple days later, and was like, I'm gonna mail you a packet. I want to invite you to our camp. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's all I needed. So I get there, and it's like, I want to say maybe 16 or 13 running backs.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's deep. That's
deep. And I'm like, and these dudes is just from all over the place. And I'm like,
hungry too.
yeah. And I'm like, man.
Not saying you weren't hungry, definitely
Yeah.
you are, but
I'm like, man. I'm like, I got to put in this work because I got to get a spot. I got to get a spot. And we went through like all the tour days, the camp and stuff. And at the end of it, he pulls me and my best friend James, who plays defense, James Whitley.
another Tremper native.
Yeah, of course. He pulls us in the office, and he was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know that you guys made the team. And I'm like, I beat out 16 dudes, you know, and I think they kept like 4 or 5 of us. I think they kept, but I'm like, bro, I beat out 16 dudes.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like, and I really tapped into, all right, let's do this. So then, at the time they had this stud running back, Cole Myra, just a beast. And I'm like, I want to model my game after him. He's just a beast. And I would just watch his every move. And I'm kind of a visual and hands-on learner. That's just how I am. And I studied his game, and I'm like, I gotta try to get some sort of tick. So I want to say, I think it was maybe the second game of the season. We was playing a team from Michigan, and coach like looked at me and was like, "Go ahead, get in there, get some." I'm like, yeah, right. He's like, "Go ahead." I'm like, "All right." So I go in there. First touch, college career, tutty.
Stop playing.
Tutty. I want to say it's probably like 35 yards, tutty. Yes, first play, college career.
So make sure you take us through the play-by-play, running into the field, everything like that.
So he tells me to go in there. He at the time we had I forget the type of offense that we ran, but we had the wristbands that we had to so we'll hold up a card and it'd be like Batman. So like that'll let you know what formation you need to be in. So then he'll be like, he'll call out Batman. Then he'll say, Wisconsin 3. And he'll look at your wristband and say like, okay, whatever Wisconsin 3 is. So I'm shaking at this point. I'm like, I don't want to mess up. I'm like thinking through the plays in my head. I'm like, all right. So then I'm lining up and I'm breathing so hard that I'm like, I don't want to mess this up, So then, and our offensive line was at the time was amazing, and just big dudes. So I'm like, I know they're gonna block for me. I ain't worried about that part. I'm just worried about when I get to the secondary, what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So, quarterback hands me the ball. I see the hole open up. This dude running right at me. I break him off a little bit, make a cut, right to the end zone.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I'm like, bruh. I'm like, what just happened? Like my first college touch ever was a tutty. I'm like, this is nuts. Like this is absolutely nuts.
What did it feel like getting in the end zone?
I turned around and like it was kind of a blur at first, and I'm like, this got to be a dream.
Yeah.
Like this got to be. And I'm like, somebody wake me up because this can't be true. First college touch and you tutty. I'm like, yeah, right. So I get back to the sideline, everybody, hyping you up and whatnot. And then my buddy James come to me like, bruh, what just happened? And I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, this is surreal right now.
Yeah.
So then that next practice, our coach was like, we need some new special teams. So he was like, if you want to be on special teams, this is what you need to do to get there. So we had our punter, and he was putting balls in the air. Like, so you have to catch one and keep it. And then he'll do another one. You got to catch another one and keep it. And he was like, you got to catch like 4 or 5 in a row, but you got to keep the balls. You got to try to catch one while holding the balls. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do it. And I got the starting spot on the kick return.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
What type of damage did you do out there?
Yeah, they kicked over my head all the time. I didn't get a single chance to return anything.
Oh, they knew they had Devin Hester back there.
Yeah,
huh?
something like that. Yeah, but man, dude, just being on that field, and like seeing like where I came from, where RAS, and doing it at the college level, that was pretty dope. Yeah. But like I said, I had to make a choice. It was either, I was getting bad grades.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was getting bad grades. I was way too caught up in the partying.
Yeah.
And hanging out and not really focused.
Yeah.
But when it came to football though, I was locked in. But when it came to the off the field stuff, I was not focused at all.
Yeah.
At all. And it got to the point where I got put on academic probation.
So that means you can't play. You can't even practice, can you?
Mm-mm. You can't. No, well, you could practice, but you can't play.
Yeah.
So that summer after the season, I was working at Calvin Klein in Pleasant Prairie, right over here, and I'm sitting there, I'm folding clothes, and I get an email because you got to do your financial, you got to do your FAFSA every year. So I get an email from FAFSA, and it said this is like, unfortunately, we are not going to grant you financial aid because of your grades, basically. And I'm like, dude, I broke down. Like,
yeah.
I broke down. I'm like, I need to take a break. And I had to go step outside, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm sick. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I had to make a choice. I had to either I'm like, I got to figure this out because, you know, all the hard work I put in, you know, from high school, and I got pretty good grades in high school, you know, and getting up to this point, I was like, I'm not about to let this go to waste. So, I went to, it's this thing in Oshkosh at the university called the Student Success Center. I met this wonderful woman named Caitlin Cooper, and she was my advisor, and we started from scratch. She looked at where I was struggling at, and she's like, she laid out a plan for my whole up to graduation, a plan for me. But she was like, only way this is gonna work is if you pay for college out of pocket.
Oh wow.
And you know, college is expensive. I'm like, and I don't got that type of money. I'm a broke college kid. I don't have that money. I was like, and my parents not about to give me no money for this. Like, I got to figure this out. I'm 18, 19. I got to figure this out. So I continued to work at Calvin Klein, saved up my money, and I paid for like 2 or 3 classes out of pocket. So then I went to the financial aid office and just told them what was going on. And they was like, look, this is what we'll do for you. They're like, if you get straight A's, like not a B plus, there's like, if you get A's in these 3 classes, we will grant you financial aid for that next semester.
Let's go.
So I'm like, okay, bet. So that's what I did. I got A's in in those 3 classes, and that next semester I got financial aid. I was like, that's what I needed. So then I got a scholarship from the program I was in, which helped pay for other stuff too, other classes. And then from there, bro, it was just like, bro, I was sleeping in the library.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not.
I know the girl.
I was like, I'm not letting this happen to me ever again. So like at the time when I was on academic probation, my GPA was like 1 something.
Whoa.
It was ridiculous.
Whoa.
Ridiculous. And by the time I graduated, I think I graduated like a 3.5 or something.
Hey.
Yeah. So I'm like, it was just like, it just goes to show if you apply yourself, you put in the work and you just refocus yourself, the possibilities are endless.
Yes, sir.
And that I live by that to this day. I will never forget, you know, that struggle of, you know, having to figure it out by myself, because like my parents can't help me do this.
Yeah.
This is on me because I put myself in this position, so I got to figure it out. And once I sat and applied myself, it was a wrap from there. It was only up from there.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll never forget them days where I'm in the library with a sleeping bag, or in the library at 4 a.m. trying to study for a test, you know, or just studying with friends. It gets to the point where sometimes I had to be like, nah, bro, I can't hang out. I gotta go.
Smart man. Smart man.
I gotta go study.
And what program was it that you were in?
It was the Student Success Center. And it's at University of Oshkosh. It's a big, beautiful building, like kind of like not really in the middle of campus, but it's like right in front of like the dining hall, basically.
Yeah.
But I went there and they hooked me up with Caitlin, and I still have her on Facebook. And,
that's what's up.
And whatnot, because like when I graduated, I gave her the biggest hug. I'm like, thank you for like believing in me. And like if I messed up, she was on me. She was on me. She was like, I'm like, yeah, I got a D on my test. She was on me. Like my mom, she was on me. Like, nah, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, and she held me accountable. And, you know, sometimes at that age, you know, 18, 19, you need somebody to hold you accountable.
Because you're still learning, still growing every day as well too. Yep.
Yes.
Big facts.
But yeah, that was a very humbling experience. I will never forget the way I felt when I got that email saying that I couldn't get financial aid. That I was so broken. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But hey, man, like I said, it's if you apply yourself, you put pressure on yourself to get it done, it's only up. You gotta refocus yourself and get it together.
It worked out pretty well for you. So what did you end up getting into postgraduate?
So my goal was, my major and when I was in college was criminal justice. I kind of knew when I was in high school what I kind of wanted to do with myself, because my dad's a mailman, so you know obviously works for the government. So I knew that I kind of wanted to do something in the same, like in the government somehow. But I was like, I don't want to be a mailman, and my dad didn't want that for me either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just like, I want something a little better for you, you know. But being a mailman, you make good money. So I was like, okay, my dad made good money being a mailman. Maybe I could do something kind of in the same, I guess, in the same realms of government, but something that's more tailored to who I am. So I was like, you know what? I was like, maybe I could be a cop. And at the time, it's the typical, I want to stop bad guys, and catch, and clean the streets, At the time, that's just what you think, But as I got older, and as we go on with the podcast, I'll kind of lay it out how I got to where I am now. But so I said, okay, I'll be a cop. So when I went to Oshkosh, I applied to. Well, first I went to Fox Valley Tech because I didn't get into Oshkosh the first time.
Oh no!
'Cause I had my ACT scores were not good. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Fox Valley Tech, which is literally basically right across the bridge from Oshkosh. I went there for a year, got good grades there, transferred over. And then that's when I started playing football and all that stuff. But I majored in criminal justice. And once my goal was I want to get hired before I graduate.
Oh.
Because then that way there's no overlap or there's no like break time in between me graduating and I got to work here for a while and then I got to get hired. Mm-hmm. Because I knew the police process is so long. It's like a year long, some of it, unless you go through like an accelerated program. But it's a long process and I knew that. So I was like, okay. So one day it was closer to my graduation. I graduated college in December 2016. I want to say maybe November, I got bored and I was like, I'm just going to throw out a bunch of applications and see what happens. Because before that, I was going to be a cop in Illinois.
Oh, nice.
Because my dad lives in South Holland, Illinois. And I was like, that'd be nice I graduate college, I can go live with my dad, save up some money and live in Illinois. But so I put out a bunch of applications. I applied to New Berlin. I applied to Racine. I applied to Beloit. I applied to just a bunch of places in Wisconsin, a couple places in Illinois. And I got a message back from the agency I work for now. I'm not going to say exactly where I work, but the agency I work for now, they replied to me and said, hey, we want to invite you to our written test and agility test, basically the physical assessment to see if you can physically do the job. So I was like, okay, this is a start. And I went there, I passed the written test, I passed the agility. So then you move on to the assessment center, which is basically like some scenarios they put you through to see how you think and some interview questions. So I passed that part. I'm like, okay, we rolling. So then you get the panel interview, which is the most stressful part, I think, of the police process, because you walk in a room and there's like 10 people in there in suits staring at you, and you sitting in the hot seat.
Awesome, Men in Black.
Yeah, it's kind of like a table like this, but a little bit bigger. And you sitting right here in the hot seat, and they just bouncing questions, and it's tough because you have to really pay attention to the question, because if you miss a part, they can use that's against you. It's like, okay, you're not answering the whole question, So that part was so stressful, and they knew I was nervous when I walked in, because I walked in, I was like, oh my God. And they was like, it's okay, just relax. We're not gonna grill you too much. But yeah, I passed the interview, that part, the panel process, and then you move on to the chief's interview, which is basically you got the job, because once you do good in the panel interview, they send you a conditional offer. They say, hey, we want to hire you, but you got to go through these things. We got to go through these things before we get there, before we get you the actual hiring process. So you got to do a drug panel, the psych test, and there's something else you got to do. I forget. But once you do those, the background, the background, that's one of the most important parts. You do the background, and once you pass those, you get to go to the academy. And luckily, the agency I work for, they put you through the academy. Through the academy. They pay for that, which is beautiful, because the academy is like $5,000, and I'm like, at the time, I was like, I ain't got $5,000. Yeah, they put you through the academy. And it was just that process, like me achieving that goal, like right before literally, I graduated in December 2016. I think I got that email of conditional offer. I want to say, well, my graduation was delayed. So I got the email in like December, and I ended up actually walking the stage in January. So, and then they were like, the academy starts in February. So, basically, when I walk across the stage that next month, I'm in the academy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but that's how I got to, pretty much where I am now, was just taking the initiative and being like, okay, I need to start putting applications out there, because I graduate in a month or two, and this process is so long.
Yeah. Now, what would you say were some things that maybe you were nervous or just thinking longer and hard of before becoming a cop?
Before becoming a cop, I was nervous about how I am with confrontation, because if you know me, you know I'm not the type of dude to really be in confrontation like that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's some of the stuff you got to do when you're in police. You got to confront people about stuff, and you got to call them out on things. And I was worried that that was something that I wouldn't be able to do. I'm like, that's gonna be tough for me, because I'm such a genuine dude that I don't confront people about stuff unless I'm really forced to do it. But I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be real tough for me. That's a struggle for me.
I can only imagine.
But being in this profession, I've learned a lot about myself, like a lot. Like I've learned that I can deal with stress very well. I've learned that my coping strategies are very strong. I've learned that my mental health is very strong, and that's not to brag or boast, but some people struggle with mental health.
Oh my gosh, mental health is definitely real.
And truthfully, if I'm being honest, I didn't think mental health was real when I was a little younger, until I got into law enforcement. I didn't think it was real. I was the type of dude to be like, okay, just get over it.
Yeah. But unfortunately, that's not how it works, my friend.
That is not how it works. Not how it works.
So many barriers and stuff.
I had an experience. This girl was having an anxiety attack, and I didn't at first. I didn't think. I thought anxiety was just like, okay, just relax, figure it out, you'll be fine. Whatever, drink some water, you'll be good. And when I first saw someone going through an episode of mental health, I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is real. Like depression, anxiety, this stuff is real. And that moment, I was like, okay, this stuff is really real. I need to figure out what I need to do to help this girl.
Yeah.
And then the EMS got there and walked me through what was needed to be done to get her to calm down. But she was having a severe anxiety attack. Like, she couldn't breathe properly. Like, it was bad. And I'm like, wow, okay. It changed my whole mindset. Like, my job has changed my whole mindset of mental health and how, how it's important to take care of yourself mentally.
Yes,
and
sir.
Figure out, how do you personally cope with stress? Like me personally, I like music. Love music. Music is probably one of my top coping strategies is music. No, I don't rap or nothing like that, but listening to it is just so soothing that it calms me down.
Yes,
or
sir.
Singing. I don't have the best voice, but it helps me too. Like when I'm in the car by myself singing at the top of your lungs, it's just like the best.
Yes, sir.
Or playing sports and going to the gym. And I would say music and the gym are probably my two top coping strategies.
My two. What do you say would be that piece of advice that you give to people who have that perspective that all cops are bad, when we all know that's not the case? Everyone's different. Everyone treats every situation different.
That's tough because I'm on both sides of it. I'm an African American male, and I'm a cop. Okay, so I'll explain it like this. So, when I've been pulled over a lot.
no. Why'd you say it like that?
Unfortunately.
It's not funny, but the way you said it.
And honestly, I really didn't start getting pulled over until I became a cop. It's weird.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's because so I got a little bit of a lead foot. I ain't gonna lie. But I've gotten pulled over by majority Caucasian cop. I've been pulled over by one African American cop. I've been pulled over by majority Caucasian cops. Every context has been the same. I have never, in my encounters with police, I've never had an issue, ever. And I think that is because from the way I carry myself. So, me and my best friend Derek, we've got stopped by Kenosha Police Department probably about maybe 3 or 4 times. Because sometimes we used to take, when we were younger, we used to take like walks at night. And we would walk in the street. I don't know why. The sidewalk is fine, but we just walked in the street. That's what we did. And the Kenosha cop would pull us over or stop us and be like, hey, you guys walking the street, whatever. Can I get your IDs? Like, yeah, here you go. Look at our IDs, run us. We're good. Okay, cool, sweet. But that situation could have gone bad if we decided to, one, if we would have ran, or if we decided, I'm going to talk mess to this cop. Now it's escalating because of my actions.
Unnecessary.
Exactly.
Escalation as well, too.
Unnecessary. So that just goes to show that cops react off how we react. If we're animated before they even get out of the car, now their alert is, okay, this is not going to go good. So now they in defense mode, just like anybody else. And they react off how we are acting. And I try to tell people that all the time is my actions are dictated off what you're doing and how you're acting. Like, for example, I had an African-American male who, he was simply going to get a ticket for disorderly conduct. That's all he was going to get. I wasn't even going to put him in cuffs. I was just going to, here's your ticket, go about your day. But he decided to run.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, dude. So when we caught him, I'm like, dude, you just made this situation so much worse. And he fought with us and everything. And I'm like, dude, you was going to get a simple ticket, man. Why did you do this? And he's like, man, y'all know, you guys are this, you guys are that. And I was scared. And I'm like, when I got out the car, I didn't yell at you. I was cool with you. Yeah. I was smooth with you. And that's how I am as a police. How I am off duty is how I am on duty. I'm a very smooth dude. Very smooth. Very fair.
Smooth criminal, huh?
Yeah. Very smooth dude. And how I'm talking to you right now is how I talk to people when I'm at work. I don't treat people no different. Like, I don't act. And we wear body cameras too.
Nice.
I'm the same way. I don't care if it's on, off, I'm the same way. And I explained to him, like, bro, had you not done this, you would have been in the crib chilling. Now I got to take you down to the police department.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, you can't do that, man. So, I mean, for people to say that all cops are bad that's a stretch. And just like, if someone to say, all minorities are bad, we wouldn't like that. We don't like that because you're putting us in this category of, like, I know I'm not a bad person, and I know some of the people I associate with are not bad people, but now you're putting us in this category of, okay, this one officer is bad, so all of them are bad. And I'm not going to sit here and call officers, some bad officers, bad apples. I'll say this: any job you go to, there's always going to be an employee that does not do the job well. Whether you go to McDonald's, Culver's, police department, fire department, the hospital, no matter where you go, there's always going to be somebody who does not do the job correctly. And if you ask those people, at McDonald's, Culver's, wherever, how they feel about this person, they'll say that, I don't really like the way they do the job. Bad cops and good cops, we don't like bad cops. We don't like that either. If you that type of person, get out of the profession.
Yeah.
Get out of it, because you making it harder for the people who really care about the profession. Like, I love what I do, and I couldn't see myself doing anything different. because I feel like it's my calling. This is who I am. I was made to be a police officer. And I got into it. At first it was like I said, let's get the bad guys. But at the first I realized it's more than that. We don't have a lot of African Americans in law enforcement. Realistically, we don't have a lot of African American females in law enforcement. We need to see the sisters in uniform. We do, especially where I work. And I got into it because it's like, if we want to cry about the way African Americans or minorities are treated in the profession, get off your butt and get in the profession and make the change. Because you can't do it sitting on a couch. You can't. So, like I said, at first, my mindset behind being a cop was, let's get the bad guys, whatever. But as I grown into the profession, it was like, okay, be the change you want to see. Okay, when like I get clout off rip just being a black cop. Like I remember one time, I got on scene and this kid who was one of my favorite kids in the city. He was like, "Oh, thank God you here." As soon as he saw me, and like one of my Caucasian coworkers was on scene talking to his mom, and he was like, "Bruh, thank God you here." And I'm like, "What's going on, man?" And he's telling me, he was opening up to me, telling me what was going on, and it's just like off rip. That's just how it is. They see me and just be like, "Yes, somebody who gets it," And sometimes I got to tell them too. I'm like, "Look, dude, I understand we got the same skin color. I get it." I was like, "But I'm not going to treat you no different, than the guy who's the Caucasian guy next door. You're going to get the same love and you can get the same treatment." And I tell people all the time, like, "Well, I need you to go arrest him." I was like, "Well, if I arrest him, I got to arrest you too. 'Cause you did the same thing."
Yeah.
But to put cops in this category of they're all bad, it's a stretch. I mean, it's not realistic. You can't do that, and you can't do that with anybody. It's just like when women be like, "All men are trash." You can't do that. It's not realistic. Because you have not met all men.
Yeah.
And I have not met all cops. You have not met all cops. So how can you say that they're all bad? And if you think about the profession of being a cop, like if the cops show up, it's not good. We're not there to say, "Hey, how you doing?" and take you to the grocery. No, we are there because someone potentially broke the law, and we're just here to make sure that nothing escalates, or somebody did break the law, and we got to do what we have to do, what we legally have to do, to make sure that that person is removed from the situation or it doesn't happen again, But yeah, to answer the question, it's not realistic to put cops in this category.
As we get ready to close out this amazing episode, do you ever deal with being scared, waking up, going to work, knowing that you may not possibly return home that night?
Oh, every shift, every time I wake up, I go to work, I'm like, this could be the day. Every day. And it's tough now, especially having a kid at home. I'm more aware of my surroundings. I'm more, I don't know how to put it. I'm more of aware, I'm more of aware of my surroundings, but at the same time too, I catch myself, doing things that might put myself in harm's way. Like, for example, a coworker of mine, the house was on fire, and we're one of the first on scene, and there are people still in the house, and I'm like, we look at each other, and I'm like, dude, the fire department not here yet. We got to do something. So we go in the house.
Oh my gosh!
And we get the lady out of the house, and there's a guy in the house being stubborn because he's like, "I want to get my cat."
Oh my god!
And I'm like, dude, cats are pretty good at sensing danger. The cat probably got out of here a long time ago. And I'm like, dude, we got to get you out of this house. And as I'm explaining this to him, I'm watching the flames come down the stairs, and I'm like, dude. I'm like, we got to get out of this house, man, because I'm not about to die in this house. Okay.
It's not funny. Just what
Yeah, it's just like I was like, I'm not about to die in this house, dude. And I'm like, have you ever touched a hot skillet? I'm like, that hurt, right? I'm like, that hurt. So imagine your whole body engulfed. No, I'm good. I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, come on. And he was like, no, man, I gotta get my cat. And I'm like looking at my partner. I'm looking at my partner. I'm like, man. So I'm putting my gloves on because at this point I'm like, I'm about to drag him out. I was like,
no, dude, why you said it funny? I'm trying not to laugh.
I'm like, I'm about to drag him out of here because I'm like, we gotta save him. Okay. I was like, I know he wants this cat, but I'm like, at this point I'm like, bro, skip the cat. We can get you another one, man. I'm like, it's a lot of stray cats running around the city, dog. Like, come on. So then he finally was like, okay, fine. So we get him out of the house and like, dude, this house was just like, it was so tore up. And I'm like, just like, it was so scary. It's just like, had we waited any longer, we don't know what was going to happen. But I'm like, watching the flames come down the stairs towards us, I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah. Like, what would you say was like the craziest, most dangerous situation that you've been put in?
That's a good question. So when I first started, I want to say I got out of training and I was on third shift. So I think at that point, I may have had a year on already. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at, was it Woodman's? I think I'm sitting at it somewhere, or I think I was driving around at this point. But we get a call for a home invasion, and it was on a street called Dewey where I work, and I'm like, okay. And at this point, I'm like, I kind of know where I'm going. I'm still learning the city a little bit, but I'm like, okay. So I put on my lights, sirens. I pull up on the block, like streets here. I put up on the block right behind, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk up so we can catch them in the act. And at this point, it's probably like, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 cops going to this call. So we pull up, we get out of we get out of the car, and at the time I'm with my sergeant, and it's just me and him walking up to the car, and then we got other officers walking up to the front of the house. And this is one of those calls where it's like, your gun is out. It's gun day.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm nervous because I'm like, oh my God, my gun is in my hand. It's cold outside. I'm shaking. And I'm like, oh my, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm playing all these scenarios in my head. So as we walk up to the house, boom, a gunshot go off.
Oh, snap.
And I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, and like at this point I'm like, oh my God, this could be the day. This could be the day I shoot somebody, or today they somebody shoot me. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm. So then like my boss is doing a good job of just keeping me calm. And he's like, Daryl, I want you to keep focused on this door. So as I'm looking at the door is open. And this guy comes out and looks at me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the suspect. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So then another dude comes running out the back door. And I'm like going like this. I'm like, should I chase him? And my boss is like, nope, somebody else will grab him. Keep focused on the door because we don't want to let nobody else out of the house. So then in the front of the house, a dude comes out just covered in blood. And at this point, apparently he let the officers know that there are still people in the house. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm like, I don't know, like I'm brand new, I don't know what to do. I'm like shaking. So then he's like, all right, we got to go in the house. So then, before we go in the house, a K9 gets on scene. So then they're doing a little sniff around the house to make sure. So then we find a gun on the outside of the house. So then, while he's doing that, we find somebody hiding underneath the car. And at this point, we like, show me your hands, blah, blah, blah. And he gets taken into custody. So then we go in the house and we take other people into custody. But that initial moment, hearing a gunshot, like, I think that was my first time ever hearing a gunshot.
Like in general?
In general. And I'm like, oh my God. I should say my first time hearing a gunshot in a live field. I mean, because I've heard it obviously through training and stuff like that. But in the field, that was my first time hearing a gunshot. And I'm like, bruh, like this is scary. Mm-hmm. I would have to say my next scariest moment was I got in a foot chase by myself.
Oh wow.
And so what happened was some kids was driving a car and they smashed into a telephone pole. In typical fashion where I work, people don't stay on scene. They hit stuff and they don't stay. So they get out the car and they run. So at this point, I was training somebody and I was driving because I was trying to show him the ropes of how I handle stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna cut them off to the west, because I think that's where they're gonna run. Because if I did this, this is where I would run. Sure enough, I pull up to the west. We got two dudes running towards us. He hops out of the car. He tells one dude to stop. He stops. The other dude keeps going. And I was like, you heard what he said? He said stop. So then dude looks at me, and he does this. He pulls his pants up, and I'm like, okay. I didn't spend too much time in the hood, but I know when them pants go up, you finna run.
Yeah.
I know. So I was like, all right. So he pulled his pants on. I was like, you better not. And he just took off. And like at this point, I'm by myself. It's pitch black outside, and I'm chasing him.
Yeah.
And I like look up at the street sign and I give out my location. And I think at this point, I think I might have had like 2.5, maybe 3 years on. So I kind of know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm chasing him, hawking him, about to grab him. So then he hops a fence, and I grab him by his dreads, and he slips out my hand, and he just takes off running again. But that initial moment, knowing I'm by myself, that was scary.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm by myself. My backup is far because we done ran a block and a half. But he ended up getting caught on the next block. But it was just like that initial, just being alone is tough. Like I give people props who work in the county. If you're a sheriff, because sometimes your backup could be 5 minutes away, or your backup may be 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
But imagine trying to, handle a situation for 20 minutes waiting for your backup to get there. That's tough. That is tough.
Yeah.
But I work in a city, so my backup's pretty close. Or my backup is either the response time is going to be like a couple minutes or it's a couple seconds, or they right there with me. So that's the luxury of working in a city, is your backup's pretty close.
Now, what are some things that you do to decompress, like after being in tragic situations like that, just heading home?
It's tough because, so after the first incident I told you about where the gunshot went off, you get this, when you first get there, you get this big adrenaline rush, heart pounding, you got tunnel vision, you got to breathe to really clear up your tunnel vision. And then afterwards, like when it's all said and done, when all the arrests are made and you're about to clear from the scene, you get this adrenaline dump, and then you get this headache that is just annoying because you went from, your fight or flight senses kick in, and then it's just boom, it's over with.
Yeah.
And you got to go to the next call and forget about what just happened. You got to focus on this next call,
which can be tough.
That's tough. Same thing with when I got in a foot chase. I'm like, after, like, it's just so much adrenaline, and then afterwards, once he's taken into custody, I'm like, whew, okay, all right, on to the next. But then, like, later throughout that whole rest of my shift, I had a headache because I had this adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh, and it's so draining, And then it's like, one time I went to a stressful call where this guy called in a fraud. Somebody like uses checks or something. And I'm thinking it's just a typical call. It's easy. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I can handle this. Well, I get in the house, and this lady crawling backwards. And I'm like, like something out The Exorcist. I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, oh, no, don't worry, man. She's just tired. I'm like, she crawling like that? What you mean she tired?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, help me, like crawling like backwards. And I'm like, so I call for more units, and I'm like, what did she take? And he was like, no, man, she's just tired. I'm like, that's not tired. I was like, I've been tired before. I ain't never crawled backwards on the floor. I'm like, what did she take? And he was like, "Oh, I'm telling you, she's just tired." I'm like, so through my training, I can recognize excited delirium, which is something that happens when you take some drugs. Your body just reacts this way to it. So, and at this, you get like hyper strength, and you like your body heat rises up to the point where you could, if it gets too high, you can die.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want to wrestle with her or try to do anything with her because if I do too much, she'll die. So I'm telling dude, I'm like, you need to move. Like, go sit on the couch. Let me deal with this. So we get some more officers there, and we end up helping her and getting her to the hospital. But it was like, I go from that call, which is high stress, and then I go to another call where a dude beating up his girlfriend. I pull up, he take off running from me, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like stressful call after stressful call. So then after I get done handling those calls, I get sent to something like, there's a cat in the tree, and I'm supposed to just forget about the stuff that I just saw and focus on the cat being in the tree. It's just like it's tough, man. It's so tough. And if you don't have good coping strategies in place, this profession can tear you apart because of the stuff that you see. We see all type of things that that people normally that they wouldn't even stomach. And I've learned that about myself too, is that I'm so good at having a short memory. And that's what sports have taught me. You make a bad play, like forget about it, on to the next play. And I use that in my everyday life, is just have a short memory, just forget about it, move on. And for some people, they can do that and it's whatever. But some people, they go home and it affects them.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, it's the highest divorce rate. The suicide rate for law enforcement is high. We just had some in the county I work. We just had, one. It's just the stress of the job it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you don't have the proper coping strategies in place, it can really eat you up.
Yes, sir.
It can really eat you up.
Now, as we get ready to close out, what would be your advice, the knowledgeable self you are now, to the rookie self?
Ooh, that's a really good question. That is a really good question. That's tough. So I guess what I would tell myself is keep working hard. Everything that you work for is coming. It's coming. Don't stress too much about not knowing the city as well, and it's coming. Your time is coming. Just keep working hard. Stay focused. Keep being a good human, and your hard work is gonna pay off. Just to give a little background information. So, in about 21 days, I'll be going on 5 years of law enforcement.
Nice.
And throughout my career, so when I first got to Beloit, I was made fun of because my geography was terrible. I couldn't tell up from down.
Oh, no.
I've never been to this city before. So, I didn't know where I was going. Like we'll go to a call and they're like, all right, go back to the police department. I'm lost. I don't know how to get back to the police department, and there was times where they didn't even think I was going to make it out of training.
Oh, wow.
Because I was kind of timid at first, because I told you that I'm not really a confrontational person, but I had to build that trait. I had to find that inside of me to be confrontational because of my job, my profession. And I didn't have that when I started. It got to the point where my bosses would question. I'm like, have you ever been in a fight before? Because I was so timid, someone would say something to me and I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, it's like, now it's just like, hey, I said, and it comes with the comfort of, just like anything. You first start at McDonald's, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But once you do it more, you get better at it. I mean, even 5 years in the city, sometimes I still struggle with geography. it's just, it's just, I probably won't be comfortable with it until, and I don't live there, so it's not like I'm driving around the city all the time anyway. But throughout the 5 years, I am now a crisis negotiator. So basically, what that is if someone's showing some type of suicidal ideations that they feel like they want to harm themselves by, like, let's just say jumping off a bridge, or they're inside a house and they want to harm themselves, or if they're inside a house they got hostage or something like that, or there's a suspect who won't come out of a house, or I'm the person that talks to that person.
That's what's up.
I'm the person that talks that person off the ledge. Which is, I applied for that position because I thought that that's something that I'm such a calm and easygoing person. I felt like I'm so good at calming people down that that's perfect for me. So I do that. I'm a field training officer. I think I said that already, which means that any new officers that come to the department, I train them, along with several other field training officers. I am. What else do I do? Right now I'm in the violent crime unit, which deals with obviously the violent crime of our city, and I work very closely with the detective bureau, and yeah, man, that's what I've accomplished through the 5 years of being at the department. But to elaborate a little bit more on what I would tell my younger self is keep grinding, man. It's coming.
Yes, sir.
Just keep grinding. Keep applying yourself. Keep being a sponge and soaking up as much information as you can. Keep applying yourself, man. It's your chance is coming.
Yes, sir. Just like that, we wrapped up another amazing episode of Line for Line.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
You calling or you listening, tune in every week. Line for line. Oh yeah, I'm going line for line.